Hello all, hope you're having a great day today. So today we are talking about weight gain through proper nutrition and exercise. This is chapter 12, part 1. So some individuals may also wish to gain weight and may use resistance training or what is known as weight training or strength training as a means to stimulate weight gain. For those who wish to improve appearance, resistance training will increase muscularity, a desired physical attribute among many males and females. Resistance training is becoming increasingly popular. According to Healthy People 2020 data, 23.9% of 18 to 64-year-old adults engaged in muscular strengthening activities 2 or more days per week in 2012, including 28% of males and 19.9% of females. These percentages increase from 2008 of 8.9 to 8.7% males and females respectively, and are near the 2020 goal of 24.1%. And I have a feeling that those have increased since due to CrossFit and things like that coming about as well. So these are our objectives today, really to talk about taking steps to gain body mass, mainly muscle mass, and planning a diet for weight gain through increased muscle mass combined with resistance training based on recommended caloric intake and the prudent healthy diet, as well as to identify dietary supplements used by physically active individuals to stimulate muscle growth and fat loss, and highlight those that may be effective based on well-controlled research. In the second part of chapter 2, we'll talk more about explaining the principles of resistance training, understanding the basic differences between resistance training programs for muscular hypertrophy, increased muscular strength and power, and increased muscular endurance, as well as how to design a resistance training program resulting in increased body weight and muscle mass, and identifying health benefits of resistance training and comparing and contrasting those benefits to those observed following aerobic endurance training. So, being significantly under a healthy body weight may be due to several factors. Heredity may be an important factor, as genetic factors may predispose some individuals to leanness. For example, a lean body frame or high basal metabolic rate may have been acquired from your parents. Medical problems such as heartburn, infections, or cancer could adversely affect food intake and indigestion, so a physician should be consulted to rule out any nutritional problems caused by an organic disease, hormonal imbalance, or inadequate absorption of nutrients. Social pressures such as the strong desire of a teenage girl to have a slender body, social pressures, and it could lead to undernutrition. An example of is anorexia nervosa, which we talked about in chapter 10. Emotional problems may also affect food intake. In many cases, food intake is increased during periods of emotional crisis, but the appetite may also be depressed in some individuals for long periods. Economic hardship may reduce food purchasing power, so some individuals may simply sacrifice food intake for other life necessities. Being considerably underweight, such as a body mass index below 18.5, may be considered a symptom of malnutrition or undernutrition. It is important to determine the cause before prescribing a treatment. Our concern here is the individual who does not have any of these medical, psychological, social, or economic problems, but who simply cannot create a positive energy balance because of excess energy expenditure or insufficient energy intake. Caloric intake has to be increased and the output has to be modified somewhat. Increased body weight, particularly increased muscle mass, may be associated with improvements in strength and power. 2 performance factors important for a wide variety of sports. Enhanced muscularity also may influence performance in judged athletic sports such as diving and gymnastics. Most colleges and universities, as well as many high schools, have strength training programs for their athletes, both males and females. At the elite level, sport-specific resistance training programs are tailored to the individual athlete. No matter what the reason for gaining body weight, you should be concerned about where the extra pounds will be stored. The energy balance equation works as well for gaining weight as it does for losing weight. But excess body fat in general will not improve physical performance, health, or athletic performance. On the contrary, it may detract from all three. To put on body weight, you have to concentrate on means to increase the fat-free mass, particularly muscle tissue, with little or no increase in body fat stores. So have an acceptable purpose for the weight gain is the first step you should take if you want to gain weight. The desire for an improved physical performance or appearance and body image may be reason enough. For athletes, increased muscle mass may be important for a variety of sports, particularly if strength and power are improved. However, you do not want to gain weight at the expense of speed if speed is important to your sport. Calculate your average energy needs daily, as we talked about in Chapter 11. For a weight gain program, you may wish to use several techniques to estimate your daily energy needs and select the highest value. Keep a 3 to 7 day record of what you normally eat. And adhere to the guidelines to determine your average daily caloric intake. If the obtained value is less than your energy needs calculated under item 2 in this list, this may be a reason you are not gaining weight. Check your living habits. Do you eat enough? Do you get enough rest and sleep? If not, you may be burning more energy than the estimate in item 2 of this list. Smoking increases your metabolic rate almost 10% and may account for approximately 200 calories per day. Caffeine in coffee and soft drinks also increases your metabolic rate for several hours. Getting enough rest and sleep and eliminating smoking and caffeine will help decrease your energy output. Set a reasonable goal within a certain period of time. Weight gain may be rapid at first, but then taper off as you near your genetic potential. Lemon indicated that body mass may increase as much as 20% in the first year of resistance training, with subsequent yearly gains of only 1 to 3%. In general, about half a pound to 1 pound per week is a sound approach for a novice, but weight gaining is difficult for some individuals and may occur at a slower rate. Specific goals may include muscular hypertrophy in various parts of the body. Increase your caloric and protein intake. As properly designed diet should indicate adequate calories and protein and not violate the principles of healthy nutrition. Start a resistance training program. This type of exercise program will serve as a stimulus to build muscle tissue. In a recent review, Phillips comments that resistance training plus the consumption of high quality, rapidly digestible protein with high leucine content of about 0.25 to 0.30 grams per kilogram of body mass per meal can exert synergistic effects on muscle protein synthesis. Guidelines for developing a resistance training program are presented later in the chapter. Use a good cloth or steel tape to take body measurements before and during your weight training program. Be sure you measure at the same points about once a week. Those body parts should be measured should include the neck, the upper and lower arm, chest, abdomen, hips, thigh, and calf. This is to ensure that body weight gains are proportionally distributed. You should look for good gains in the chest and limbs. The abdominal and hip girth increase should be kept low because that is where fat is more likely to be stored. If available, skin fold calipers may be used to measure subcutaneous fat skin folds at multiple sites over the body. Fat skin fold thickness should remain the same or decrease to ensure that weight gain is muscle rather than fat. In summary, adequate rest, increased caloric intake, adequate intake of high quality, high digestible protein, and a proper resistance training may be very effective as a means to gain the right kind of body weight. Gaining weight as muscle mass may be difficult for some. Remember the quote from Chapter 11, muscles are hard to get and easy to lose. Fat is easy to get and hard to lose. Resistance training is important to help stimulate muscle growth so that extra calories are used to develop muscle, not fat. As noted, gaining about half a pound to 1 pound per week is a reasonable goal, although some may be able to gain more, while some may gain less. Muscle tissue consists of about 70% water and 22% protein, and the remainder is fat, carbohydrates, and minerals. Because the vast majority of muscle tissue is water, which has no caloric value, The total caloric value is only about 700 to 800 calories per pound. However, extra energy is needed to help synthesize the muscle tissue. We're going to talk more about adequate dietary protein as well as the nutrient timing here in just a moment. It is not known exactly how many additional calories are necessary to form 1 pound of muscle tissue in human beings, nor is it known in what form these calories have to be consumed. The National Research Council notes that 5 calories are needed to support the addition of 1 gram of tissue during growth. Because 1 pound equals 454 grams, a range of about 2,300 to 3,500 additional calories appears to be a reasonable amount. With a recommended weight gain of 1 pound per week, about 400 to 500 calories above your daily needs would provide an amount in the suggested range of 2,800 to 3,500 calories per week. Bartels and others reported that an additional 500 calories per day resulted in nearly a 1 pound increase in lean body weight per week during a resistance training program. For our purposes, we shall consider about 3,500 calories as the weekly excess energy intake necessary to support an increase in 1 pound of muscle tissue. So, to determine the number of calories needed simply to maintain your current body weight, then add the calories that you expend during exercise and the additional amount needed to synthesize muscle tissue. So table 12.1, we'll see in just a moment, presents an example of a 154-pound male, 18-year-old, who desires to gain a pound per week. You modify the figures according to your own needs. You can choose the MyPlate website to plan a weight gain diet as well as a weight loss diet. And there are other methods that we talked about in Chapter 11, such as the Mayo Clinic calorie calculator that can be used. Remember, a weight gain of about 0.5 to 1.0 pound muscle mass per week is a reasonable goal during the early stages of resistance training. If you're maintaining your weight with your current dietary intake, adding 500 calories per day may also be an acceptable program. So here you can see the 154-pound, 18-year-old male trying to gain a pound per week. His recommended caloric intake is to maintain his current weight is about 19 calories per pound or 2,468 calories per day. Now, with resistance training, he is burning about 200 calories per session, and I'm doing about 400 sessions per week, so there's about 800 calories for 7 days, and he's going to need about 115 calories to support that. Then, if he does aerobic exercise, about 300 calories per session, 4 sessions per week, that's about 1,200 calories per week. He's going to need another 170 to support that. And then muscle tissue synthesis, so building muscle, that's about 3,500 calories per pound and about 3,500 calories per week. So looking at that, about 500 calories. So total daily caloric intake would be about 3,253 once you add all of those together. One of the most researched areas in sport nutrition is the recommended protein intake for individuals who are attempting to increase muscle mass with resistance training. Topics of interest include amount, quality, timing, co-ingestion with carbohydrate, and the cost. From a mathematical viewpoint, adding a pound of muscle protein per week does not require a substantial increase in daily protein intake. Muscle tissue is about 22% protein and 70% water, with the remainder composed of carbohydrate and fat and trace amounts of vitamins and minerals. 1 pound of muscle is equal to 454 grams, but only about 100 grams is protein. If we divide 100 grams by 7 days, we would need approximately 14 grams of protein per day, above our normal protein requirements, to support the growth of 1 pound of muscle per week if we are in protein balance. Incidentally, 14 grams of protein could be obtained in such small amounts of food such as 2 glasses of milk, 2 ounces of meat, fish or poultry, 2 eggs, or a various combination of all of those. To add a pound of muscle tissue a week, you need to consume approximately 400 additional calories and 14 grams of additional protein per day. A weight training program is an essential part of a muscle training program. 1 glass of skim milk, 3 slices of whole wheat bread, and 2 hard-boiled egg whites provide the necessary calories and about 23 grams of protein. As you may recall, the acceptable macronutrient distribution range, or AMDR, for a protein is 10 to 35% of daily caloric intake. As you saw in table 12.1, our 70 kilogram or 154 pound male needs a daily intake approximating 3,250 calories to add a pound of muscle per week. If he consumed a diet containing 12 to 15% of energy from protein, his daily protein intake would approximate about 90 to 122 grams, or 1.4 to 1.75 grams per kilogram of body mass. As noted in Chapter 6, experts disagree on the necessity of protein over the RDA of 0.8 to 1.0 grams per kilogram for individuals seeking to gain muscle mass through resistance training. Some contend the RDA includes a safety factor providing adequate protein for muscle hypertrophy. In his 2012 review, Phillips notes the inconsistency in protein RDA and U.S. Canadian Dietetic Association recommendations of 1.2 to 1.7 grams of kilogram of body mass for athletes. The RDA for our 70 kilogram male is 56 grams daily. An additional 14 grams totals 70 grams, which is less than would be consumed on a diet with 12 to 15% protein. If he consumes 1.6 grams per kilogram as recommended by some, his daily protein intake would total 112 grams, still within the 12 to 15% range. Protein intake could be increased even more and still remain within the AMDR of 10 to 35%. And that's basically what this is showing, is that the calculation of protein dietary intake, looking at the 3,500 to 4,000 calorie level each day, and the percentage of protein. So at 12% versus 15%, the calories in protein, the grams of protein, and grams of protein per kilogram. And in this particular table, it's basically saying the same thing. So for those for prudent protein intake in kilograms per kilogram, for those who are sedentary, they only need about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, versus those who are really looking to maintain and are doing strength training, about 1.2 to 1.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. For those who are looking to gain muscle mass, they need about 1.6 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. For those who are doing endurance training, they need a little bit less, of about 1.2 to 1.4. For those who are doing intermittent, high intensity, or CrossFit type things, 1.4 to 1.7. And those who are looking to that are weight restricted, about 1.4 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Timing of protein is an important consideration. Homey and others indicated that protein intake close to a resistance exercise workout may alter messenger RNA expression in a manner that may promote muscle hypertrophy. This may be the mechanism underlying the contention of Belin and others that post-exercise protein administration is warranted to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, inhibit protein breakdown, and allow net muscle protein accretion. In his review, Phillips concluded that evidence increasingly supports the efficacy of protein consumption in close temporal proximity to the performance of resistance exercise and promoting greater muscular hypertrophy. Current research suggests that the quality of the ingested protein may also be an important consideration. In his most recent review on the science of muscle hypertrophy, Phillips indicates that certain types of proteins, particularly Those that are digested rapidly and are high in leucine content appear to be more efficient at stimulating muscle protein synthesis. In particular, Phillips noted that milk proteins, specifically whey and casein proteins, are of the highest quality. He indicates that whey protein is better able to support muscle protein synthesis than is soy protein, and the practice of consuming high quality proteins after exercise should lead to greater hypertrophy. As noted in Chapter 4, consuming carbohydrate after exercise is recommended to replace muscle glycogen, a key energy source of exercise. Phillips notes that carbohydrate alone is not sufficient for muscle protein synthesis, but ingesting a protein and carbohydrate mixture immediately following resistance exercise or aerobic endurance exercise may be recommended. Both the carbohydrate and the protein will stimulate insulin secretion, which will help move glucose and amino acids into the muscle to facilitate recovery and support muscle protein synthesis. Other considerations are the cost for a standard amount of high-quality protein may vary considerably. And protein, in particular, protein support supplements may be very expensive. For example, Goldman noted that one particular product providing 25 grams of protein costs $3 to $4 per bottle. A comparable amount of high-quality protein from fat-free milk would cost approximately 60 cents. Now, some considerations with that are some folks don't necessarily break milk down very well, and so if they're milk tolerance, that's something to consider, as well as weight tolerance with your supplements. So just some considerations there as well. Dietary supplements appear to be very popular among athletes and others attempting to increase muscle mass and strength. If we can use advertisements as evidence to support this contention. For example, in a survey of only 5 magazines targeted to bodybuilding athletes, Grunwald and Bailey reported that 800 performance claims were made for 624 commercially available supplements. The effects of the many of these supplements, such as specific individual amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and other individual nutrients, have been discussed in previous chapters and in general not been found to be effective as performance enhancing agents. Research has found that many are ineffective, whereas other supplements are inadequately researched. Protein and creatine supplements may help increase muscle mass. Pasicos and colleagues reported that protein may promote muscle hypertrophy and power with increased frequency, duration, and volume of resistance training. Phillips noted that whey and other high-quality proteins with high leucine content may increase muscle growth and repair. Creatine monohydrate also appears to increase muscle mass. Numerous studies report increases in power and strength in high-intensity resistance exercise with short-term recovery. Early increases in muscle mass may be due to water retention, but increased resistance training capacity may ultimately increase muscle mass. Creatine may help augment the anabolic effects of resistance training in the elderly, increasing muscle mass and strength, according to reviews by Kandau and Rawson and Benezia. In their meta-analysis, DeVries and Phillips reported that creatine and resistance training increased total mass and fat-free mass in adults over 60 years of age, more than resistance training alone. The importance of resistance training to help prevent or reduce loss of muscle mass in the elderly are covered in the next section. However, several other dietary supplements marketed to athletes are patterned after anabolic or androgenic steroids. Some herbal products are marketed for their supposed anabolic potential. In general, this research indicates that such supplements do not increase muscle mass and may cause adverse health effects. In a symposium sponsored by the Gatorade Sports Science Institute, 5 experts on muscle building supplements provided this advice: train hard, follow a sound diet with adequate energy, protein, and carbohydrate, and don't rely on dietary supplements. If you do use supplements, be sure to consult with an expert such as a sports-oriented dietitian or a physician, not the clerk at a health food store. As with losing weight, the food exchange system may be the basis for a sound weight gaining program. Foods may be selected for high nutrient value as well as additional calories to support the weight gain. The following suggestions may be helpful for those trying to gain weight as muscle. In general, the focus is on healthy dietary sources of carbohydrates, protein, and fats. Drink 1 to 2% milk instead of skim milk, which will add 15 to 30 calories per glass. Chocolate milk provides both carbohydrate and high quality. If you want to decrease caloric intake from fat-free chocolate milk is available. Prepare milkshakes with dry milk powder and supplement with fruit. Add low-fat cheeses to sandwiches or snacks and eat yogurt supplemented with fruit. The milk exchange is rich in high-quality protein. Increase your intake of lean meats, poultry, and fish, which are also sources of high-quality protein. Legumes such as beans and dried peas are high in protein, carbohydrate, and calories, and low in fat. Use nuts, seeds, and limited amounts of peanut butter for snacks. The meat exchange is also high in protein. Increase your consumption of whole grain products. Pasta and rice are nutritious side dishes that provide adequate calories. Starchy vegetables like potatoes are also nutritious sources of calories. Breads and muffins can be supplemented with fruits and nuts. And whole grain breakfast cereals can provide substantial calories and even make a tasty dessert with added fruit. The starch exchange is high in complex carbohydrates, but also contains about 15% of its calories as protein. Add fruit to other food exchanges. Drink more fruit juices, which are high in both calories and nutrients. Dried fruits such as apricots, pineapple, dates, and raisins are high in calories and make excellent snacks. Use fresh vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower as snacks with melted low-fat cheese or a nutritious dip. And try to minimize the intake of saturated fats using monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats instead, particularly olive and canola oil. Nuts and seeds are good sources of monounsaturated fats. And salad dressings and soft margarine add to vegetables can increase the caloric content. Milk and juices are nutritious and high in calories. Those who drink alcohol should obtain only limited amounts of calories in this way. Some liquid supplements are available commercially and may contain 300 to 400 calories with substantial amounts of protein. However, check the label for fat and sugar content. Eat 3 balanced meals per day, supplemented with 2 or 3 snacks. Dried fruits, nuts, and seeds are excellent snacks. Some of the high-calorie, high-protein, high-nutrient liquid meals and sports bars on the market are also make good snacks. This Table 12.2 presents an example of a high-calorie diet plan based on the food exchange system. It consists of 3 main meals and 3 snacks and totals about 4,000 calories with 160 grams of protein, which is 16% of the calories. It is also high in carbohydrate, which may increase insulin resistance, increase insulin release, facilitate an amino acid transport into the muscle to help promote protein synthesis. Carbohydrate also spares the use of protein as an energy source. Alternative foods may be substituted from the food exchange list as presented in our discussion. This suggested diet provides the necessary nutrients, calories, and protein essential for increased development of muscle mass, and yet fewer than 30% of the calories are derived from fat. The total number of calories can be adjusted to meet individual needs. You may plan your weight gain diet on the Choose My Plate website. Meal plans may be adjusted to the energy needs of individual athletes. For example, Lambert and others noted that competitive bodybuilders should consume a diet that contains about 55 to 60% carbohydrate, 25 to 30% protein, and 15 to 20% fat for both the off-season and pre-contest phases. However, during the off-season, the diet should be slightly hyper-energetic, approximately 15% increase in energy intake, and during the pre-contest phase, the diet should be hypoenergetic, approximately a 15% decrease in energy intake. As noted previously, for 6 to 12 weeks prior to competition, bodybuilders attempt to retain muscle mass and reduce body fat to low levels, so they need to be in negative energy balance to facilitate oxidation of body fat. Lambert and others recommend that the diet contain 30% protein at this time to help prevent loss of muscle mass and possibly also provide a thermic effect to help burn fat. As noted in Chapter 5, one of the general recommendations for an improved diet is to reduce the consumption of fat, particularly saturated fat. Unfortunately, many high-fat calorie diets are also high in fat. If there is a family history of heart disease, if an individual is known to have high blood lipid profile, then high-fat diets may be contraindicated. Individuals with kidney problems may also have difficulty processing high-protein diets because of the increased need to excrete urea. Any person initiating such a weight training program or weight gaining program as advised here should consult with his or her physician. Selection of food for a weight gaining diet, if done wisely, can satisfy the criteria for healthy nutrition. Foods high in complex carbohydrates with moderate amounts of protein and a moderate fat content are able to provide substantial amounts of calories and nutrients, yet minimize health risks that have been associated with the typical American and Canadian diet. To gain weight wisely, you need to continue to eat healthy food, but just more of them. So, in summary, the individual attempting to gain body weight should obtain necessary high-quality protein from muscle synthesis through a well-balanced diet rather than by consuming expensive protein supplements. And although creatine supplementation may help increase muscle mass during resistance training, most dietary supplements marketed to strength training individuals are not effective and have not been evaluated by scientific research. The food exchange system can serve as a basis for increasing caloric intake to gain body weight if the aspirant reader eats greater quantities of nutritious foods from each of the 6 lists and 3 balanced meals plus several high quality and high nutrient snacks. And that is all we have for today, folks. I hope you have a great day. I'll talk with you soon.